If you are like me, you have probably heard about the great fishing for channel catfish that happens where the Palouse River and the Snake River meet. I have long been intrigued by this particular fishery, and 2 years ago finally made a trip to try to figure it out. I learned a lot that trip and applied that knowledge to a trip some friends and I did last year to great success. I want to cut to the chase and share with you the main insights that helped me catch these wonderful catfish. So if you decide to give this fishery a go, you'll have a great starting point for your adventure. The main points are 1. Knowledge on the catfish. 2. Location and timing of this fishery. 3. Tackle, rigging, and baits. And 4. Tips and tricks. At the very end, I'll have a description of a unique landmark in the area, the Marmes Rockshelter. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about the beast we are after. Channel catfish are a large, primarily river-dwelling catfish native to the eastern United States. The world record is 58 pounds. Channel catfish were brought to the Snake River in the 1890s by the United States Fish Commission. These people brought fish all over the place. They are the reason why we have what we have today. Catfish are opportunistic omnivores. They'll eat darn near anything that is edible. I've even caught catfish with wheat grain in their bellies, likely spilled grain from the many grain silos along the Snake River. Channel catfish spawn in the shallows in early summer. They make pre-spawn migrations from deep water to shallow water. This is of importance for the Palouse River catfish fishery, as these fish will move shallow sometimes weeks or even up to 2 months before they actually spawn. Where the Palouse and Snake River come together is kind of out there in eastern Washington, an hour drive south of Ritzville, Washington. The Snake River here is actually a reservoir backed up by Lower Monumental Dam that backs up the lower 2 miles of the Palouse River. Here there is a Lions Ferry KOA. It's a great spot to camp. It does require reservations to camp though. The time frame for this fishery can be as early as April and going through the month of June. However, this is all water and weather dependent. Some years April is still just a touch too early. I have gone here in the middle of May and I've caught catfish, so to me that seems like a good time to plan a trip. Tackle and bait. The rigging is very simple. So right here I have my favorite catfish rod. This is a 9-foot medium heavy Okuma Cascade Pro. I have it spooled with 30-pound test Power Pro braid. And I just have the braid running down to the barrel swivel. I have a slider on here with a 1-ounce cannonball weights, a little bead here to protect the knots. And then I have a relatively short leader here of 20-pound monofilaments to a size 1/0 circle hook. And what's special about the way I got this tied is I have this tied with an egg loop, which there's a lot of videos on how to tie an egg loop. I like tying egg loops because I will bait this with a chunk of cut fish. So I can put the chunk of cut fish on there and then just cinch it down with the egg loop. My bait of choice on the circle hook is cut pieces of fish. You can catch some bluegills, catch some perch with night crawlers, cut them up, put them on the hook. These channel catfish will also bite night crawlers. I've caught them on night crawlers before, but it seems like the cutfish, you tend to catch catfish on the cutfish. If you put night crawlers out there, you'll get bit by all kinds of riffraff that lives in the river. My personal favorite fish to use for bait is hatchery rainbow trout. So a day or two before I go down there to go catfish fishing, I'll catch a rainbow trout out of a local lake, fillet it, put the fillets on ice, and then when I get down there, I'll cut up the fillets and put those chunks of fish on the hook, and that seems to work really well for me. And that's all I use. 30-pound main line, 20-pound leader might seem a bit heavy, but there is the possibility to tussle some very large fish. Tips and tricks. This is the kind of information that you can only learn by going out there, struggling, and having fun. Main things I learned out there my first trip was the mud flat out there is no joke for a prop boat. I got my prop boat stuck out on the mud flat, and since getting stuck out there, I've learned to follow this line along the west bank, basically about 100 yards out from the west bank. Seems to be a pretty good line to follow. If I actually want to get out onto the mud flat, I'll pull up my main motor, and then I'll use my oars, or I'll use electric motor to kind of scoot around out there. We'll also learn the catfish do move a lot. So if you don't get bit within an hour or so, move around on the mud flat. So when you cast this rig out, that 1 ounce weight will sink down in the mud. So it's best to just reel your line tight, pull that weight up out of the mud, then everything's sitting nice and flat on the mud flat. And then you can detect a bite when a catfish does come by. It may seem counterintuitive, but I learned using circle hooks because I never used them before going after catfish. When a fish takes the bait, you don't jerk the rod, set the hook. The best thing to do is, as the rod's bending down, just pick up the rod and reel into the fish. There's no need to set the hook. The way these circle hooks are designed is when a fish picks them up and takes off and gets tensed on the line, the hook will rotate generally into the corner of the mouth, which is super cool. You can also find catfish in other locations beside the big giant mud flat. You can actually go up the Palouse River Channel proper, and I've been able to make it up a little distance with my prop boat. As you go up, you will encounter an island, and I was fortunate to encounter some locals up there that advised me when going upstream to stay to the right of the island, because to the left is a big, shallow, rocky mess. There is a lot of bends in the river up here. I haven't had a lot of experience fishing for catfish in the river proper, but it's my understanding that some of the bends do produce catfish during this time frame of April through June. You can totally fish this area with a kayak. You can launch your boat at the Palouse State Park down there where the Palouse River comes to the Snake and paddle around on the mud flat, paddle around in the river. This is Eastern Washington. It does get very windy, so keep that in mind. Know your limits, trust your gut, and have fun. That's pretty much the basics for fishing for catfish as I understand it. Now I'm going to talk about a fascinating piece of local history, the Marmes Rockshelter. I noticed on Google Maps this pond called the Marmes Rockshelter, and I was very curious, like, what's this all about? So I dove into it, and I found some pretty interesting information on the Marmes Rockshelter. In the 1950s, there was a farmer named Roland Marmes. He owned property out there. This particular rock shelter was on his property, and he contacted archaeologists from Washington State University. Archaeologists eventually did show up, and they started digging in the rock shelter. What they found blew them away. They found stone tools. They found animal bones. They found human bones that dated back to 11,000 years ago, meaning that this rock shelter had been used by people for a very long time. Also in the rock shelter, they found a Jefferson Peace Medal. During the Lewis and Clark expedition, Lewis and Clark gave various Indian tribes these medallions as symbols of peace. It's my understanding that only a handful of those have ever been recovered, and one was recovered in this hole in the ground in Eastern Washington, which I think that's really cool. The archaeologists uncovered thousands of artifacts from this one location. Time was running out for the archaeologists because the Army Corps of Engineers was working on Lower Monumental Dam downstream. This dam would raise the water level and flood the rock shelter. Knowing the significance of the site, a dike was built around the rock shelter. However, when Lower Monumental Dam was completed in May of 1969, the dike failed and the entire rock shelter was flooded. Fortunately, most of the rock shelter was covered in concrete because the archaeologists had a hunch that this hastily built dam wouldn't really hold back the rising waters of the reservoir. The thought being, even though dams can last a long time, they don't last forever. And at some point in the future, people would be able to dig in the Marmes Rockshelter once again. Little did I know that reading that name on Google Maps, Marmes Rockshelter, would lead me down a fascinating local story. Fishing in particular gives me lots of stories of my own. If you would like to try this catfish fishery and make your own stories, and found this video useful, give it a like. If you've watched this far into it, consider subscribing, as I really love fishing in the Pacific Northwest. If you would like to see me struggle to catch fish during my very first time out here, check out this link on the screen. As always, thank you for watching, and fish on.